10 years ago, a colossal gate suddenly appeared, leading to another dimension. From this gate emerged monsters beyond imagination, so numerous that the world's armies could not stand against them. Ordinary weapons were useless, but amid this chaos, a new hope arose. Hunters. These individuals wielded magical powers, their classes ranked from the highest to the lowest. They were far stronger than ordinary people, and with their magic and enchanted weapons, they could destroy the monsters one by one. Now, 10 years later, in the city where the first gate appeared, many hunters venture forth to make a living by slaying monsters in the dungeons. Two hunters, who had spent years battling together in these dungeons, reunite and reminisce about the old days. Hunter 1. Remember when we first started out in these dungeons? Those were some tough times, but we made it through. Hunter 2. Yeah, we sure did. Look at us now, still kicking. But have you heard about Jinwoo? I saw him heading to the construction site nearby. As the hunters chatted, more began to gather near the gate. Some were preparing for battle, others enjoying what might be their last cup of coffee. Suddenly, a young man named Jinwoo appeared. Despite his unusual strength and regeneration, it was embarrassing for him to call himself a hunter. Hunter 3. Hey, is that Jinwoo over there? I can't believe he's still around. They call him the weakest hunter in the world. Mr. Kim. That's right. Jinwoo is so weak he gets hurt even in the easiest dungeons. His arrival means this one's going to be a breeze. Jinwoo walked up to the group, greeting everyone warmly. But as he passed by, he heard whispers. Hunter 4. Here comes the weakest hunter alive. Before Jinwoo could respond, he was interrupted by a familiar voice. Jui. Sunjin, how did you manage to hurt yourself this time? Jinwoo. I don't know, Jui. I always seem to get injured when I hunt, but today will be different. I won't get hurt this time. Sunjin sat down on the building materials, explaining to Jui how they were only in an E-rank dungeon, yet he was the only one injured. Despite this, he resolved to do his best today. As the hunters prepared to enter the dungeon, Sunjin took a deep breath and joined them. Jinwoo. I might not be the best fit, but I'd like to lead our group for this raid. I'll give it everything I have. To everyone's surprise, the others agreed. They gathered their equipment and ventured into the dungeon, determined to defeat the boss and earn their rewards. Sunjin, the last to enter, was filled with determination. Today, he promised himself, he would survive and earn enough to support his family. A little while later, Sunjin managed to find a magic stone. But before he could celebrate, a monster attacked him from the shadows. With his inadequate weapon, Sunjin was quickly overwhelmed and injured. Thankfully, a healer girl rushed to his side, using her magic to heal his wounds. Healer girl. Don't worry, Sunjin. I've got you. Just hold still. While Sunjin recovered, the other hunters dealt with the remaining monsters. They regrouped, thanking each other for their teamwork. However, Sunjin wasn't as happy, feeling guilty for needing constant help. Hunter 5. Hey everyone! I found a secret passage. It looks like a double dungeon. The group gathered, staring at the newly discovered entrance. A double dungeon meant greater challenges, but also greater rewards. They debated what to do next. Group leader. All right, team. We need to vote. Do we explore the double dungeon or head back before it gets too dangerous? The votes were cast, resulting in a tie. All eyes turned to Jinwoo, the deciding vote. As Sunjin pondered his decision, he knew it could change everything, for better or worse. Jinwoo stood at a crossroads contemplating his next move. His heart was heavy with the responsibilities he carried, his mother in the hospital and his sister's dreams of attending university. After a short moment of reflection, he clenched the magic crystal in his hand, determination filling his eyes. I agree, Jinwoo said. Let's go into the double dungeon. A little while later, our group of young monster hunters continued their journey through the deep cave. They knew they were on a tight schedule. If they could defeat the dungeon boss, they would still have 20 minutes to escape before the dungeon automatically closed. As they walked, the healer girl grew frustrated with Jinwoo. Jinwoo, you keep getting hurt, and I have to keep healing you, the healer girl said. You need to be more careful. After a few minutes, they reached the end of the cave and saw a massive door looming before them. Everyone, be on your guard. We're going inside, the squad leader said. As soon as the door creaked open, they entered and torches began to light up on their own. The hunters were awestruck, having never seen a dungeon like this before. The air was thick with mystery. It felt as though no one had been there for ages. The statues lining the room were peculiar, each one holding something different, some even with musical instruments. The most imposing sight was the colossal statue at the center. Jinwoo gazed at it, hoping it wasn't the dungeon boss. As they ventured further, they came upon a magical seal inscribed with the rules of the Konon. 1. Worship the Lord. 2. Praise the Lord. 3. Prove your loyalty to him. While the hunters familiarized themselves with these ominous rules, the healer girl noticed something unsettling. Sunjin, whoa, did you see that? The healer girl said. The eyes of that huge statue just looked right at us. Suddenly, the door they had entered through slammed shut with a thunderous echo. Panic rippled through the group as they struggled to understand what was happening. I've had enough. I'm leaving now, Hunter 6 said. This was a mistake. As soon as Hunter 6 approached the door, a massive statue opposite it sprang to life. With terrifying speed, it swung its huge axe, obliterating the hunter in a single blow. The remaining hunters stood frozen in shock, realizing the grave danger they were in. They needed a plan, and fast. The hunters couldn't believe what had just happened. They were surrounded by massive statues that seemed intent on their destruction. Sun Jinwoo quickly turned his head and locked eyes with the enormous statue behind him. In an instant, the statue began staring directly at him, its gaze piercing and relentless. This wasn't the first time Sun Jinwoo found himself in a deadly situation. During his first raid, he was left behind, lost, and nearly died of starvation when trapped in a dungeon. He had to work twice as hard to take care of his family, but now he faced a terrifyingly powerful adversary. The eyes of the huge statue began to glow with a bright fire. Everyone, fall to the ground! Sun Jinwoo shouted as bright rays began to shoot from the statue's eyes, destroying everything in their path. Most of the hunters perished instantly, obliterated by the destructive rays. Those who survived looked around in shock, unable to comprehend how they were still alive. They faced the grim reality that defeating the statues would be an arduous task, perhaps impossible. Some of the more sinister and dangerous monsters were known to lurk behind such gates. The group's healers were overwhelmed. I turned your arm, but the bleeding never stopped, the first healer said. The second healer said, her voice trembling. One was killed so brutally there was nothing left of him. The second is in shock, unable to speak after what he saw. The third, whom you know, can't get herself together. If she survives, this situation will haunt her for a long time. The situation was dire. With their skills, healing was almost impossible under these conditions. The hunters knew they needed to escape, but doing so seemed an insurmountable challenge. Desperate and frightened, the group questioned why they had entered this dungeon in the first place, considering it was only a D-rank dungeon. Sun Jinwoo realized that getting past the giant statue guarding the exit was the only chance of survival. But the guards flanking the door were ruthless, annihilating anything that approached. I'm not going to die here, a hunter shouted defiantly. I just joined a normal guild. I'm strong, so I can get out. The hunter, driven by desperation, relied solely on his speed skills. He dashed forward like a bullet, determined to escape. Don't do it, the squad leader cried out, but his warning went unheeded. In an instant, the statue spotted the fleeing hunter and unleashed its laser eyes. All that remained of the runner were his legs. He never made it. The horrific scene left everyone in stunned silence. The remaining hunters stood frozen, comprehending the massacre that could befall them at any moment. Sun Jinwoo understood that the statues could annihilate them at any time, yet they didn't. He pondered the reasoning behind the big statue's inaction. Why did it not kill without reason? The door guards, however, mercilessly eliminated anything that came near. Sun Jinwoo stood amidst chaos, trying to make sense of the situation. Suddenly, a thought struck him. There had to be some kind of order to this madness. How had he not thought of it before? Does anyone know if this room has its own rules? Sun Jinwoo asked, his voice filled with urgency. His eyes fell on the precepts of the Konon temple. He shrieked with sudden realization. This is it, Sun Jinwoo said, turning to his friend. Song, help me out. What was the first commandment? Have you read them? The commandment seems to say, worship the Lord, Song answered. Then that is it. The Lord of this dungeon has its own rules, Sun Jinwoo shrieked. What are you thinking? Sun Jinwoo's mind raced. If he was right, the statue didn't attack those who remained still. It was obvious from Sun Jinwoo's actions that he wasn't seeking death but rather trying to save everyone. He realized the statue only attacked those who stood at a certain height. He finally understood the essence of the first commandment. Hear him and bow to the Lord, Sun Jinwoo cried out, his voice echoing through the chamber. Everyone thought he was crazy, but Sun Jinwoo believed this was their only chance. He realized that if they worshipped the statue, it meant directly praising it. This premonition might just save them. The hunters felt goosebumps rise on their skin as they looked up, seeing the terrifying smile on the statue's stone face. Its expression had changed. What is it? Sun Jinwoo shrieked. How many times has he attacked us already? How many more times do we have to worship him? The hunters all wondered the same thing. It seemed to have stopped, but was it truly over? Would worshiping the statue really keep them safe? But Sun Jinwoo wasn't convinced. As loud noises rumbled around them, it felt like an earthquake had begun. The statue started to rise from its throne, its massive form dwarfing the hunters like insects. Jinwoo, tell me, do you have any more ideas? Song shouted. At that moment, Sun Jinwoo stared in awe at the scale of the statue advancing toward them. It seemed to be the end, but Sun Jinwoo remembered that the dungeon had its own rules. 1. Swear an oath to the Lord. 2. Exalt the Lord. That's supposed to be the solution, isn't it? Sun Jinwoo said to himself, his mind racing. Exalt, exactly. Exalt the Lord, cried one of the hunters, a member of a church choir. He knew how to sing and pray. Pulling out the cross that hung around his neck, he began to praise the Lord. For a moment, they thought it worked. The statue seemed to move more slowly, but Sun Jinwoo realized too late that the hunter was praying to the wrong god. The statue straightened in an instant, stepping on the hunter who had been praying. Chaos erupted as they began to run, shouting for help. Run together, it's dangerous. We have to split up, Hunter 3 shouted, trying to rally the group. Sun Jinwoo grabbed the hand of the girl running beside him. He knew that if he let her go, she would be doomed. Exalt the Lord! Exalt the Lord! Sun Jinwoo shouted as he ran, the words almost a mantra. Guards stood at the front, while the huge statue loomed in the back. They attacked with everything, swords, axes, spears, caring not who was in front of them. Their sole task was to kill. Sun Jinwoo struggled to understand why the guards had musical instruments. Perhaps it was a clue, indicating that the guards only acted when approached. This realization sparked an idea in his mind. I understand. We have to play the music, Sun Jinwoo said, feeling a surge of hope. Realizing this might be the key to their escape, Sun Jinwoo and the remaining hunters began to move, the realization igniting a newfound determination in them all. The hunters moved cautiously toward the statues with musical instruments, hoping for a miracle. To their astonishment, the statues didn't attack. Instead, they began to play music. This unexpected turn of events gave them a glimmer of hope. Sun Jinwoo and Song quickly searched for other statues, trying to understand the rules of this strange dungeon. Song sat beneath one of the statues, studying the massive monster before him. Meanwhile, Sun Jinwoo ran up to another statue, but nothing happened. Confusion set in until they realized that if two people stood under the same statue, it wouldn't play a tune. Sun Jinwoo immediately moved on, searching for a statue with an instrument. However, a huge statue spotted him. Desperately, he approached another statue, hoping for music, but found a guardian instead. Mistaking the guardian for a musician, Sun Jinwoo was struck and wounded. Despite the pain, he refused to give up and crawled onward, determined to find the right statue. Always teetering on the brink of death, Sun Jinwoo clung to the fragile thread of survival. At any moment, it could snap. But when he finally heard the music, he sighed with relief, believing he might be safe. Wounded and exhausted, Sun Jinwoo lay on the floor, missing a leg. Blood pooled around him as he gasped for breath. Jui, the healer, rushed to his side, tears in her eyes. Your leg, Jui shouted, her voice breaking. There's so much blood. The hunters realized that if they avoided looking directly at the guards, they could keep moving. But fear gripped them as they saw the statues start to encircle them. One hunter tried to run for the cave exit, hoping to escape. But Sun Jinwoo understood that if anyone left the altar, the lights would go out and the gate would close. Stay where you are or we will die, Sun Jinwoo shouted, desperation in his voice. There aren't enough of us to watch every statue. Sun Jinwoo knew they had to keep the blue lights burning to end the ordeal. Yet he feared it could also mean something worse, that the doors might seal their fate forever. Sun Jinwoo had proven his worth in the most dire circumstances. Many died when they entered the dungeons, but those who survived owed their lives to him. Thanks to you, Sun Jinwoo, I'm alive, but I can't stay here anymore. I have a family too. I can't die here, Mr. Kim shouted to Sun Jinwoo. Sun Jinwoo could only hear Mr. Kim's parting words, sorry, as he ran off, leaving Sun Jinwoo to his fate. Dumbfounded by such betrayal, Sun Jinwoo didn't expect the gate to close so quickly. They realized that everyone had to leave, but one person would have to stay behind and sacrifice themselves. It was decided that Sun Jinwoo and Madame Jui would leave together while Mr. Song stayed. But as Jui tried to stand, her legs refused to move due to mana depletion. She had used much of it, healing Sun Jinwoo. Mr. Song, help her get up. I can't walk with my leg. You're the only one who can take care of her, Sun Jinwoo said as he urged them to leave. As they left, Sun Jinwoo was left alone. He sat by the altar, contemplating his fate. Thank God I'm the only one who has to die here, Sun Jinwoo thought to himself. He was ready to face his end. Determined not to go down without a fight, Sun Jinwoo shouted at the statues. Go ahead and attack. I'm not afraid of you anymore, Sun Jinwoo shouted, bracing for the onslaught. The guards began their attack blow by blow as Sun Jinwoo fought desperately. As he faced his end, his only thought was that he didn't want to die. In his mind, he cried, if only I had been given one more chance. His eyes were closing when, out of nowhere, an alert appeared before him. You have completed all the necessary requirements of the secret brave man's mission. It was his last chance to become a player of the system and survive, but it required his permission. If you refuse, your heart will stop in 2 seconds. Sun Jinwoo was dumbfounded. The desire to live surged within him, but he hesitated to agree. I want to live, Sun Jinwoo thought. He made his decision. A bright light enveloped him, waking him up. When he opened his eyes, he was in a hospital. He could hardly breathe, having just come back from the brink of death. Was it really a dream? Sun Jinwoo wondered as he looked around the hospital room. At that moment, 2 men in suits approached. They had been waiting for him to wake up, but Sun Jinwoo didn't recognize them. We apologize for the disturbance, one of the men said. They introduced themselves as representatives from the Korean Hunters Association. Sun Jinwoo was taken aback. He had been asleep for 3 whole days. What happened to Mrs. Jui and Mr. Song? Sun Jinwoo asked, his voice filled with concern. Are they safe? They're fine, but Mr. Song will have trouble working with only one arm now. He can retire if he wants to. As for Jui, she's still being treated for psychological trauma, the representative explained. We're not sure if they'll remain hunters. As they started discussing other hunters, Sun Jinwoo interrupted. That's enough. I've heard everything I wanted to know, Sun Jinwoo said. The man continued, explaining that only 6 people survived the double cave ordeal. Such carnage was rare, even for hunters. When the Hunter Association and White Tiger Guild arrived on the scene, they found Sun Jinwoo alone on the altar. We couldn't find the statues or anything the others described, the man said. It's only a theory, but we believe you went through a rebirth. Sun Jinwoo was incredulous. A hunter's stats are fixed unless they experience a second awakening, which allows some to rise in rank. We brought a gauge of magical power. All you need to do is place your hand on the crystal, the representative instructed. If you've reawakened, it should show. As Sun Jinwoo placed his hand on the crystal, he wondered about the monsters the survivors had described. Ordinary hunters wouldn't have stood a chance against such foes. Only high-rank hunters could make a difference. But when you put your hand on the crystal, it registered only 10, the man said. The lowest E rank is at least 70. We must have suspected you for no reason. With that, they left the room. Sun Jinwoo felt bewildered by the encounter. As they walked out, Sun Jinwoo noticed something they hadn't seen, a notification system hovering above his bed, flashing a message. He turned his attention to his leg, pondering what had truly happened to him. I found myself in a truly surreal situation, caught between a dream and reality. It was so bizarre because I couldn't tell the difference anymore. It all started with this strange vision. I mean, I was fully awake, but it felt so real. I looked down at my chest and saw that my pierced breast was perfectly fine, but something just felt off. Then my sister came into my room. She had this worried look on her face and asked, "What are you doing?" She saw me standing there just poking my finger in the air. I must have looked ridiculous. "How are you feeling?" she asked with real concern in her voice. And before I could even respond, she jumped on me, practically yelling, "Don't get hurt again. I'm really worried about you." She kept asking, "What about the others? Is everything okay? Why am I the only one who got hurt?" But I was so lost in my own thoughts. I couldn't believe I almost left her behind in whatever dream world I was in. Then there was this message. It was like it spoke to me. I asked my sister, "Do you see what I'm seeing?" She just looked at me like I was crazy. "When there's an unread message," I tried to explain, "how can I read it?" But she didn't get it. She was just more confused. I had this message in front of me saying I had become a player and that I had a daily task to become stronger. I mean, seriously, what was that about? Later on, after my sister left the room with her friend, I decided to focus on these alerts that kept popping up in front of me. The system was supposed to help me grow stronger, but there was also a warning. If I disobeyed its orders, I could be punished. And it mentioned rewards too, but I couldn't quite figure out what they were. Then I remembered seeing something similar when I was lying on the altar. There was this message about a daily challenge to get stronger. So naturally, I decided to check it out. The instructions laid out a quest: push-ups, abs, squats, and running. It sounded simple enough until I saw the warning. Fail to complete the daily quest, and you will be sent to the village as punishment. I thought it was a joke, so I ignored it and decided to rest. But then my bed started shaking like an earthquake was about to hit. Suddenly, I found myself in the middle of a desert. I couldn't believe it. Am I dreaming? I wondered. But then I saw it, a giant, poisonous centipede staring right at me, ready to attack. Panic surged through me, and the quest instructions flashed before my eyes. Now it was a penalty task: survive for 4 hours. This is a nightmare, I thought, as I ran for my life. The monsters were relentless, chasing me across the barren sands. They jumped out from all directions, never giving me a moment's rest. Those 4 hours felt like an eternity. I was running on pure adrenaline. When the alert finally came that I had survived, I was exhausted but relieved. I found myself back in my hospital room, safe but utterly drained. I jumped out of bed, thinking the ground was still sandy. I collapsed on the floor, completely spent from the ordeal. But when I lifted my head, there was another notification. Reward for completing the punishing task received. Claim your reward. I was too exhausted to even think about it, and I drifted off to sleep right there on the floor. A nurse came in and found me lying beside the bed, surrounded by sand. Her eyes widened in shock, and she immediately called for help. The next day, I overheard the nurse talking to her colleague. "Have you heard of a patient named Jinwoo?" she asked. "Apparently, there's a hunter in our hospital, and he's been running every day since he woke up." The doctor replied, "Hunters heal faster than ordinary people. Light exercise is good for them." But as they looked out the window, there I was, still running. "What is he doing?" the nurse wondered aloud. Honestly, I didn't know either. I had been running for almost 4 hours since I woke up. But through all this, I learned a few things. First, the visions in front of my eyes, they weren't illusions. I could see them clearly, even if no one else could. When I finally completed the last quest, the 10K run, I got my reward. I had the option to choose one of the cells, and I went with status recovery. At that moment, I gained this incredible magic power that could heal my fatigue after training. I felt a wave of relief wash over me, knowing that I had overcome yet another challenge. I was standing there, confused as ever. You know, it's strange how all those wounds on my body just vanished, like they never even happened. It was as if my injuries were a bad memory that I'd finally woken up from. And on top of that, I still had stats, random boxes, and this strange new ability to improve my character traits until I ran out of points. It was like a video game come to life. Every time I increased a player's stats, I got stronger. Leveling up did the same thing. I mean, this whole system, with its skills, status inventory, and stored items, felt like something out of a game. I couldn't quite wrap my head around what was really going on. At this point, my characteristics were at level A. Strength 10, Intelligence 10, Dexterity 10, Perception 10, and Toughness 10. I even had 3 points left to spend. Later that evening, I went to the front desk and asked if I could leave for a bit. I had some things I needed to take care of outside. Eventually, I found myself at the subway entrance, ready to figure out what I was holding in my hands. You see, every time I completed a daily task, a random box appeared. Sometimes it held useless items, but this time was different. I was holding a key, not just any key, but one that allowed me to create a dungeon instantly. I could use it at the third entrance of the hair station. This key was my ticket to something incredible. And I couldn't help but wonder if this was all due to an over-activation procedure or something similar. If it was, I had to try it. After all, the weakest hunter in the world doesn't get over-activated every day. People would have laughed if they'd heard, but I was confident in my ability to escape. If it was as dangerous as last time, I would find a way out, no matter what. I inserted the key, and suddenly a portal opened in front of me. Without a second thought, I stepped through. As soon as I did, a notification popped up. "You have entered an instant dungeon." The entrance behind me slammed shut, and there I was, in a completely different world. A girl walked past me, oblivious to the chaos surrounding us. I realized this was no ordinary dungeon. It was another dimension, something like a red gate. Panic hit me hard. I was planning to run if things went south, but now the exit was sealed. There was no way out except to fight. A notification appeared. "You cannot leave the dungeon until you kill the boss." It felt strange, almost like a cruel joke. Days had passed since I fought any monsters, and now I had to clear a whole dungeon alone. A strange feeling crept over me, as if someone was mocking my every move. They seriously expected me to handle this without a team? Had I overestimated my capabilities? I thought I could handle it without backup. As I moved forward, the scene around me was a nightmare. Everything was destroyed, like an apocalypse had swept through. Each step I took drained more of my confidence, the ominous atmosphere pressing in from all sides. And then I saw it, a monster charging straight at me. It leaped, and I barely managed to dodge. Turning around, I saw the creature, a wolf, but not just any wolf. It was a Ryan steel fang. Fear gripped me as I realized even one or two goblins had been tough before. Could I defeat a monster as terrifying as this? The wolf was much stronger and bigger than I was. My legs wouldn't respond. I was paralyzed by fear. The monster lunged at me, jaws snapping. It nearly took my leg off, but I jumped aside just in time. I didn't have a healer with me, so I couldn't afford to get hurt. The beast was already at my head, ready to bite, but something changed. I was lighter on my feet, quicker. I dodged, surprising myself. I'd never moved like that before. It hit me. I was stronger than I had been. Looking into the wolf's eyes, I realized I wouldn't cower anymore. I would fight. With all my might, I swung and struck the wolf, sending it flying into a nearby fence. I couldn't believe my strength. It had to be my improved stats. But the Ryan steel fang was still coming at me. My usual attacks had no effect. This monster was tougher than anything I'd faced. It became clear. This was too much for me alone. I didn't have a team, healers, or equipment. I was running out of options. Then it hit me. What would it take to defeat such a powerful monster? All I had was my body and this strange system with magical powers. If only I had a weapon. Wait, my inventory. As soon as I thought about it, my inventory opened up. As I pulled a sword right out of my inventory. How did it get there? I had no idea, but that was the least of my worries. I was facing the most terrifying opponent I had ever encountered. With a single swift blow, I cut the wolf in half. This was no ordinary sword. It was the blade that Master Kim had left in the double dungeon. I remembered hearing that Mr. Kim bought it for $3 million. It was far too expensive for me back then. I couldn't afford anything like it. But now here I was, wielding it. My inventory had turned out to be quite a handy thing after all. I could store anything I wanted in there. Ever since I got my hands on this sword, I wasn't afraid of those horrible monsters charging at me. But as I gripped the hilt, a chilling realization hit me. I couldn't lift the sword off the ground. I struggled, pulling with all my might, while two vicious wolves crept closer and closer. Just in the nick of time, I managed to swing it and hit one of them. The other wolf latched onto my sword with its iron steel fangs, and that's when I understood why it was called Steel Fang. I couldn't let Master Kim's sword go to waste. Summoning every ounce of strength I had, I chopped that wolf in two. Thinking back now, those wolves were nothing compared to the monsters I'd faced before. They seemed weak in comparison. With each battle, I grew stronger. I had to survive at all costs and become even more powerful. After defeating those wolves, I found a quiet spot and sat down to think. It seemed that each time I leveled up, all my characteristics increased by 1 point, and completing daily tasks earned me 3 points. Right now, I had 5 points and was curious about how much stronger I could become. Monster hunting and leveling up seemed to be the key. I wanted to see how much I could improve my characteristics, even intelligence and perception. The important thing was understanding my strength. Even though it had only increased by 10 points, I already felt the difference. Could my characteristics keep improving? I wondered if my level had any limits. After defeating 2 monsters, I was surprised that no magic cores had dropped from them. I thought all dungeon monsters had such cores. Maybe these were a different kind of monster. An interesting thought crossed my mind. If I was under the control of the game system, perhaps the dungeon and these monsters were created by it. Maybe that's why items, rather than magic cores, drop from them. After all, I managed to get Ryan's Fang, which was quite large. I could store it in my inventory or sell it in the store. But when I tried to sell it, I got a notification that my level wasn't high enough to make the transaction. Beginners couldn't use this feature. I was offered 20 gold coins for Ryan's Fang, but I had no idea how much it was truly worth. It was all virtual money. This dungeon was supposed to be high level, E rank, and maybe it wasn't worth selling. I had to decide what to do next because I couldn't leave until I beat the boss. I could escape if I found a return crystal, but I wasn't sure that would even happen. Besides, I was running out of food. If the boss was too strong, fighting him alone would be a challenge. However, if I leveled up a bit more, it might be possible. But then again, I might die before I even got to him. I made up my mind. I would destroy any monsters that came near me and go straight to the boss. I had nothing to fear. I had already died once and wouldn't let it happen again. I destroyed every wolf that came at me. They seemed to multiply, but with each level I gained, I grew even stronger. Soon I was dispatching them with ease. I had decided I wouldn't give up so easily. These wolves wouldn't die too easily either. Otherwise, I might start feeling sorry for them. I had to fight fiercely, pushing my body to its limits. Eventually, I realized that if I didn't leave, I would be killed. As I leveled up, I understood that if I died, I wouldn't be able to protect the people I cared about. I'd lose everything. I couldn't just give up like a weakling. If I could get stronger, I would follow these absurd rules to survive and protect everything I held dear. When I thought I'd defeated all the wolves, more appeared, blocking my path in the next hallway. I was struggling. My body barely responded. I knew I could win and keep moving forward. Then during the battle, I realized the blade of my sword had become blunt. It was losing its strength. Even if I bought a high-end weapon, it would eventually end up the same. There was one occasion when I bought a dagger that cost over 50,000. Although it became much easier to hunt, the dagger still broke easily in a boss battle. That day, I got 3 magic crystals, but still couldn't afford to buy new weapons. Even though it was exhausting, I decided I would take care of them one by one using my body. I was grateful for this blade. It had saved my life more than once. Today, in the end, I received the title of Wolf Killer. This title is awarded to a hunter who skillfully fights wolves. It increases experience against beast-type monsters by 40%. I was able to get 34 wolf fangs, 2 daggers, a traveler's clothing, and a return stone. It was more than I expected, but this return stone was too tempting. I didn't know if I should go back, but there was no guarantee that there would be another chance to get stronger so easily. What would happen to this dungeon after I used the return stone? Would it just disappear? If it's some sort of system-created limited event, then it's very real. I ended up feeling like I was dancing on the palm of Buddha's hand. I stood and pondered whether I should go on or just back off, but in the end I put the stone back in my inventory and headed forward. After all, I wanted to get stronger, and with each step I was able to raise my level higher and higher. When I fight monsters, I feel a little better, and I definitely feel like I'm getting stronger. Unlike normal dungeons where monsters are reborn, these creatures don't feel alive. Fighting them is more like a game where their character is determined. If I can learn their behavior, I can understand where they come from. Perhaps there's a monkey on top and a cat on all sides. I fought them all alone, and was able to defeat them. I am much stronger now than before. I'm different now. As they attack me, if it were a month ago, I would have died long ago. But now I know how to behave in such situations. In this case, the color of their name changes depending on their strength. White means weak, orange means strong, and red means very strong. At first, the color of the Recon's name was orange, but now it's white, and I'm a little stronger. But even with the strength I have now, I'm not sure I can beat that guy. I started getting goosebumps when I saw the smoke heading one way. It's probably due to the increase in my sensitivity. I can appreciate how powerful the monster is down there. My level doesn't seem to be rising anymore. And besides, my sword won't last long if I fight in vain. Finally, I decided that I needed to go down and see for myself what was waiting for me. I kept going down. Suddenly, something fast started rushing right at me. Before I could even blink, something hit me hard with its big tail. I managed to parry this blow with my sword, but I was still thrown back into the nearest wall. It hit me very hard and made me bleed. I sat and stared at the terrifying monster. I stood in front of this horrible creature and looked him straight in the eye. At that moment, I realized that the sword could not pierce it, and the blows would have no effect. I needed to figure out how to deal with him quickly because I'm almost out of time. The monster kept attacking, and I realized I needed a very quick, full-weight attack. At the same time, I had to weaken this guy's defense. But how am I going to deal with these thick scales? All my attacks could not penetrate his thick scales, and something had to be done about it. I tried to dodge and defend myself, but I would have died if he had hit me with a straight punch. However, in the end, he managed to hit me several times, causing me to be very badly hurt and fall to the ground. Was this the end I had been walking toward all my life? I thought I'd gotten a lot stronger, but it wasn't enough. How strong would I have to get to kill a monster like that? After all, to escape my past, I am the weakest hunter in the whole world. There had been such rumors about me lately. I remembered being told that there seemed to be people who do such things for fun. I need to make more of an effort to stop these rumors. This nickname stuck to me because I'm too weak, but I shouldn't brag about my weakness, for I myself know how weak I am. It is a force that clutches my head, a power that overwhelms me. No amount of false pretense can protect me. Whatever the enemy does, the sheer force of fear within me makes my knees bend and my toes dig into the ground. I am ignored, perhaps because I am weak, or maybe because I have never been thanked before. I remember that day when so many brave men and skilled hunters died, yet I stayed alive. I survived, and now I must survive again. If betrayal comes easily, then I must become stronger. This is where I must overcome all obstacles. No matter what happens, I will recover and continue my journey. I will reach the goals that await me, for I must become even stronger. All the monsters in my path will fall, for compared to this monster, the fear I once felt, I am completely calm now. Even if there is a monster before me that surpasses me in strength, I will still deal with it. I grabbed hold of this enemy's neck and wouldn't let go. I squeezed as hard as I could, but she resisted. Every wall around us seemed to close in. I was choking her with all my strength, screaming for her to die. Eventually, she began to suffocate. At this time in the hospital, the doctor was asking if I had returned to my room. He wondered why I hadn't come back, even after the sun went down. But the nurse at the front desk said I was almost healthy and would be discharged soon. The doctor wasn't so sure. He spoke about the hunters, saying they should stabilize me in that room because high-class hunters, rich and broad class, don't earn much money. They live in constant danger. He didn't understand why we do such a job. It's horrible to watch the conditions in which hunters work. It's fascinating what they do inside the dungeon. The veterans are on another level from patients who get into accidents. They're covered in blood, yet they survive these conditions. The nurse thought it was a miracle that they could return from the dungeon, but the doctor disagreed. Even the weakest hunters are strong compared to ordinary people. At that moment, I was finally able to kill the monster. A notification showed me that I had upgraded. I sighed with relief, knowing I was a little stronger than before. If the next alert showed that I had killed the ruler of the swamp, the blue venomous Duclan, I could be rewarded with bottles of purified Declaw venom. It can be obtained by killing a dap, and there's a slim chance of its skin falling out, which will become stronger. However, it will weaken my strength. I also got a dagger made from a D-clune. Its venom can paralyze and cause bleeding. I can choose to keep it or sell it. My clothes were torn to shreds and my sword was broken. My whole body was battered, but I finally got a better blade than the one Mr. Kim had. When I decided to sell it, a new notification appeared. The boss had been killed, and the dungeon's interior would return to its normal state. I looked up and saw everything around me start to disappear. It was finally over. I began my ascent to the surface, wondering what time it was. As soon as I reached the top, I encountered a soldier. He started asking me questions about how I escaped and why I hadn't heard about the transmission. I didn't understand, but when he saw my sword and tattered clothes, he realized I was a hunter. He immediately apologized, offering to see me off. Devastation surrounded us with a pile of dead monsters nearby. I realized a gate must have opened, releasing the creatures. The soldier assured me not to worry. The nearby monsters were destroyed. Only one big monster remained. Thanks to my sensitivity, I could sense it. I saw a bright light not far away. A boss, very large. Many hunters were fighting it. Tanks, ranged hunters, archers, and mages. The soldier asked not to take pictures and to leave the area immediately, but I was intrigued by what the hunters were doing and how long they'd fight. I wanted them to deal with it swiftly, yet the battle was fierce. Some hunters were wounded, screaming for a quick cure for the tank holding back the boss's attacks. But all the hunters nearby could handle it because his defense was strong.